I'd like to introduce our next guest. Our next guest is Dr. Maure Ann Metzger. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Dr. Metzger has been an educator for 27 years, working with at-risk and special needs high school students. So what drew you, what interested you in this subject?
Well, my dissertation work was on leadership programming with at-risk and special needs youth. And what I found out was that there was very little youth voice in the field and in the research around youth leadership, which is ironic because youth leadership really is about youth voice and youth empowerment. And yet when I went into the literature and the research out there, there was a lot of adults talking about it, but very little to no youth voice being included. And I was very surprised and disappointed by that. So I really wanted to bring their voices into the field that is about them and about empowerment of them.
And I've heard the term, special needs, we hear that, but at risk, can you define what at risk actually is?
Well, at risk, there's actually a definition of that on the state education website, and it's really a very broad category in terms of schooling. They do have some specific criteria that narrows it down, but it really is about youth that maybe have other factors in their life that put them at risk. It might be school, problems with school early on. It might be life circumstances. It might be poverty, maybe a pregnancy. There's a variety of factors that sort of
put them in that category.
Yes.
My question is, when you're saying like poverty and you're hearing about all these different things that might happen at home, how are the schools aware of that, or how are they, how do they know to categorize somebody in an at-risk type of scenario?
I think it's more so kind of after the fact. It's more like after they start struggling in school or failing in school. I think that's where we start to take a look at, what else is going on with this young person? And sometimes it's testing, and sometimes they're either expelled or encouraged to go to a alternative school or tested to see if they qualify for special ed. But it tends to be, especially at the high school age, it's a little more like after the fact that we find out that they have all of these other things that enter into their life experience and school experience.
Okay, now that makes more sense to me. I think I was looking at it from a different perspective.
So is there one thing that can be, like when you talk to these students, what is it that they tell you? What are some of the things that you heard from them?
Well, some of the things, and in particular some of the things that surprised me when they shared their experiences and what they thought made for effective leadership programming, was how much they valued it. In fact, most of them said it was the most valuable class they'd taken in their school career. And I was very surprised by that, and they talked about it in terms of why they valued it. It really allowed them to see that they could make a difference in the world and in their world and in the larger world, larger society.
So just to clarify, Dr. Metzger, so these students attended a leadership course, or
yes,
and so through that course, then they saw these values. Is that correct?
Yes, they got involved with service learning and leadership projects, and so they actually experienced empowerment. They felt valued, whereas many of them, especially at-risk and special needs youth, did not feel valued in the regular school system or out in society and in their community. So really they had this incredible, value and appreciation for those experiences. Another piece was efficacy beyond even self-esteem. It did grow their self-esteem, but just a sense of I can act on my world and see it respond and see some results, and they were very positive results. So just this sense of efficacy. And another piece was role models. When they came into the class, I'd ask them, who do you see as a role model or a leader in your life? And most of the time they would quote a family member as their role model. After being involved with leadership and meeting community leaders, international leaders, having those kinds of experiences, they really identified with a lot of leaders. They then kind of took those people on as their role models and wanted to aspire to be like them. People even, they had the opportunity to meet a lot of Nobel laureates. And it crossed genders. I mean, a lot of the young men were like, I really just was so inspired by Wangari Maathai or Shireen Ebadi. And they just really took these women leaders on as their heroes and felt if they can do it, I can do it too.
I'm just thinking for maybe some of the students who maybe came from backgrounds of family life that was a tough family life, for example. So putting them through a program like this, it showed them maybe things that they would have never imagined or that they could aspire to be in life.
Absolutely.
Do you have any stories you can tell us?
One young man who had been in 22 different foster placements, he was a ward of the state, many school challenges, many life challenges. It was life-changing for him to be involved with that. He ended up, again, meeting many of these different leaders, and he ended up saying, this class changed me, heart, mind, and soul.
Wow. Heart, mind, and soul. That's pretty powerful.
It is.
And he said it allowed me, when I used to fall down because he had involvement with the law, etc. He said, I didn't know how to get back up. I stayed down. Okay. Now I know I can get back up, and I know how to get back up. I know I can make a difference in the world. And not only can I change the world, I can teach other people how to do it too.
What I was thinking, the first thing when you were telling the story, is I was thinking about these kids that they get labeled as, you're this or you're this and you're this, and they start to believe that they are in this category, like where you said they can't participate in these extracurricular activities and they can't be this because they're told so much that you're this, that maybe they just decided to stay there and say, you know what, I can't. And it sounds like from the class that we were talking about that you take, they just start to think, wait a minute, okay, I was like this, but I can change. I can be something else. That's where you said that they fall down and get back up. That really hit me because I think that's huge, especially at the teenage level. You are, it's such a peer pressure environment that you're in, and everything is about your peers and what's happening at the time, and you don't tend to look beyond high school when you're there. And so I think that's an incredible class for someone to actually take.
Oh, I do too. And how could we as educators, is that something, do you think, that people get? And I'm not saying that every child with a rougher background won't be able to, turn out or won't be able to be successful, but is this a surprise to educators when you talk about this?
I think there's even resistance. I think not only surprise, but there's also resistance to having young people participate in this kind of experience, because I think people believe that, I even heard the comment, these young people don't belong out in the community doing these sorts of things. And my response to that is, these young people are our community. And so many of them have maybe burned some bridges with the community by some of their actions, not all, but some. And so this is what helps to build those bridges back. And we found through the surveys in our district that the youth that had been involved in service learning and leadership had much higher levels of school connectedness and community connectedness, which tends to run low for a lot of the at-risk and youth with special needs because they've had so many experiences of failure. So we know that it's positive, and there's a lot of research out there that shows that these kinds of experiences are very powerful.
So do you have some, you had mentioned there's some quotes or some voices from the students.
I would love to share a couple pieces. One piece is one of the reasons that they really valued that program, leadership class and program, is that it helped them to learn more about the real world than any other class they had taken. I had one young woman who actually was quite bright academically, and she was in one of our alternative high schools. And at the end of the class, she drew these two pictures. And one was the before the class picture, and it showed a lot of books. She had a pile of books in front of her, and they were labeled history, life, studies, love, whatever. And then there was the second picture that was the after picture, and all of these books were in a trash can. And I thought, oh, wow, I hope, what is that about? And this is what she had to say about that image. Before, I was all about books. I loved to read them. It really inspired me to read about all these people changing their lives and the lives of people around them. But now, Now I am definitely more about being the person the books are being written about. This was the perfect class for me to take right before graduation. I really feel inspired to do something positive with my life.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
it was
really
this
touching.
person that was really, first inspired by, what other people did, and now she was one of those people.
2 words
Wow.
pulled away: being and inspired.
Oh,
So
wow.
just that she transformed into seeing herself.
Wow. That actually brought a little bit of tears to my eyes when you were reading that. Someone being able to identify with themselves through something. It's we're giving something to them for them to take it upon themselves and grow from.
We're opening what's already there. Empowerment
Yeah.
is really about not giving power to people. It's about releasing the power, the wisdom, knowledge, and talents they already have. So exactly what you said, just sort of unlocking those
Yes.
doors, and it's there.
Did your research influence your current or future work?
It did. It actually, it really took me to ask some deeper questions. Why are youth not being valued within our school settings, within our society? Why are their voices missing? Why aren't they part of all the decisions that really impact them in the different places? And why aren't we actually bringing them into a lot of important issues in society? And so I really started down the journey of asking these questions, and it has led me to working on a book. The name of it is A Prison Called School.
And it has to do with all the findings, I'm assuming?
Yes, it definitely, and much more than that. It's really about a lot of oppression of our youth, and especially youth that have factors like the ones that have had, placement, foster placements, that have had even our youth that are minorities, our youth that have had legal struggles. Youth in particular have additional challenges and additional oppression on their plate to deal with.
Okay.
I think that's really neat too, because it's an awareness, and now with you going through, and it sounds like even this class in itself is self-awareness, and so by putting that out there and that information for other people, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's really about bringing those questions to everyone, to be asking those, and then really bringing about change about how we work with and view youth.
And I like that you brought their voices to this project.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, when you looked at the research, there wasn't anything about them. It was about what other people found, it sounds like. But this specifically brings their voice to it.
Absolutely, and my book will also have a lot of their voices in there. And if there's one last quote I could share.
Yes, please do.
I would like to, because it really challenges us to think about, including youth now. And this is from a young man. He said, don't underestimate the youth, because we are the future. Don't try and shoot our ideas down because we're younger or that we have less experience. Just trust in our judgment, because all in all, we're the ones that are going to be managing your world. And that is so true.
Wow.
Beautifully said.
Very much
It's like,
so.
absolutely, we need to bring you in now
Yeah.
so that we're all prepared, and you will be leading us as I'm aging.
Right,
They will be
right.
the ones running the world.
Well, Dr. Metzger, thank you so much for being with us today. In
Absolutely.
closing,
Thank you.
I just want to ask you, do you have a website if somebody wanted to get more information?
I do. It's www.empowersolutions.org, and that's M with a M, empowersolutions.org.